Hello and welcome to Because Growth Matters, the podcast for sales professionals, business leaders, and growth-driven teams. I'm your host, Daniel Robus, and we're here to rethink how we lead, coach, and grow in today's fast-changing sales landscape. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with an industry leader all the way from Kenya, Erick Sangoro. I'm thrilled to have Erick here. He is the Managing Director of Cummins Cars and General. He holds combined expertise in both accounting and IT. He oversees power solutions across East Africa. Beyond expanding business operations, Erick leads a meaningful community project as president of the Rotary Club in Nairobi, Langata. We'll chat about how he's balancing innovation, leadership, and service to improve Africa. First of all, Erick, for folks who have never been to Nairobi, what is a commonly held belief about Nairobi that you disagree with, that you just want to put to bed now?
I think there are many, but I think there's one that is misunderstood. Many people think that Nairobi is this very unsafe place, and anytime you want to travel to Nairobi, you need to be also careful. That is not true, and that is because it all depends on where you go. There are parts of town that are super safe, and you can actually go there day and night, but always be cautious, obviously, like any other city. One thing I've always done when I travel abroad is that I also just get that kind of intel of where should I go and where should I not go. If I keep to that, then all will be good. Nairobi has got plenty of nice things to see. It's the only city that has got a national park in it. Okay. In fact, that's a place you'd really want to stop by, go to the park, get out of the park and fly out to wherever place you want to go.
It's amazing having lunch in Nairobi when you're looking over the wall into the national park. I have to say I love it. Erick, how long have you been in Nairobi, and do you hail from Nairobi or did you grow up somewhere else?
Interesting enough, I was born in Central Region, actually Eastern Region, a town called Meru. My heritage, where my ancestry comes from, is somewhere near Lake Victoria. Pretty much a good mix of different cultures in Kenya. I speak Meru fluently. I also speak my mother tongue fluently. So kind of a good diversity in language. But Nairobi, I am here mainly because of work and mainly because that is where most of us look up to for connections and where you get to start your career. Nairobi is that city that kind of opens up the futures for many career people.
If you haven't been to Africa and not lucky enough to have gone to Nairobi, it's one of the most warm, vibrant cities on our continent. It is definitely to be experienced, but quite a few people migrate to Nairobi and then they move. Why, Erick, did you choose to stay in Nairobi and build your roots there? Why didn't you move even though you've traveled so much?
So Nairobi is very interesting. One is because the people are very hospitable, very welcoming. Nairobi is also home to very many places where if you like food, you can really, really enjoy yourself. It's not very costly as a place. If you compare it to other cities in the world, it's relatively reasonable from a cost-based perspective. Apart from that, also, it's also the network of friends. The other life that I have is being the president of the Rotary Club of Langata, a connection of people who love serving the community. And that is what keeps me alive and keeps me kicking when we see the impact that we do in the community.
Now, you've got a full-time role as managing director of Cummins C&G, but you spend a lot of time doing Rotary in your spare time. Do you think this is supported enough from a leadership perspective, volunteer work? And what do you get from it?
Dan, that's a very good question. It's a good question because one thing that I've grown up to appreciate is that we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a society. And if we can be able to harmonize business and our society, it just becomes a way of life. It stops becoming that thing that you have to stop one thing to do another. You pretty much can be leading a business, but while doing that, you are also making sure that you have a better environment. You have people who are well supported. a society that is happy. And if you get that harmony, it pays back because pretty much from the same society or the same community, you will be getting people back to yourself who are going to join you as employees, who are going to help produce for you. And that's where I get most of my joy. If I am able to do that, I feel that I'm fulfilled and I'm energized. I don't feel like serving the community is anything different that would require so much more extra time. It just becomes a way of life.
I love that. It becomes a way of life, that well-rounded. I say we don't have work-life balance. We have work and life. You only have life. When you were younger and you were looking at the MD, what do you wish you could have heard from the MD that would have helped you in today's position?
One of the things that I look back and say that I learned the hard way was, the way you get into leadership, you're young, you're ambitious, and you're thinking about all these things. You want to move mountains. And then all of a sudden you have a team that you have to kind of get energized and get them to deliver. When I was starting up as a leader, one of the things I believed was you could actually replicate kind of skills. So if you have, for example, a good salesperson, then you would look for another salesperson of the same kind and duplicate. If they're not performing equally, then you'd always fault the other one and think, wait a minute, why are you not performing like the other person? But over time, I've come to really appreciate the uniqueness that each and every person brings from the leaders and different team members. And what has really buttressed my thoughts around this has been the work by Patrick Lencioni. If you've seen what Patrick Lencioni has done when it comes to working genius, talks about these different working genius capabilities, talks about the galvanizer, talked about the tenacious person, the person who you'll see them in your space. They just have a headphone and they just want to work, and that makes them happy. The others they go with their gut feel. They have this discernment capability. And all these things are quite unique, and they come to the table. So you cannot tell the galvanizer that you need to be like the tenacious person, or the tenacious person need to be more discernful. I realize that we have our innate, unique ways that kind of bring very interesting mix into the workspace that really helps deliver great performance. That is something I wish somebody told me earlier.
So when it comes to coaching our people and giving opportunity, same is not equal, is not fair. Giving the same to someone, we've got to treat them in the way that best sparks their passion and their creativity. Do you think currently in the global landscape, and especially the African landscape, the common perception that multinationals are almost the enemy is the right perception for our continent?
I'd say yes and no. I'll say yes because some multinationals get it, others don't. And this is why. The ones that get it realize that each and every country has got its own dynamics. And that is with regards to the people. It has dynamics around the environment. It has dynamics around how people transact. What trust means in every culture is different. How you have trust in Kenya, how you have trust in Tanzania, they're different. And how you earn it as well is equally as different. And those multinationals who get that right, get it. Now, the ones who move in because they have a model that works in another country and it's pretty much plug and play, then those kind of miss the point because then it's not the same.
So then they're just imposing, they're not growing and co-creating. Erick, we've seen the world turned upside down the last 12, 18 months. There's lots going on. What's on your whiteboard that you and your management team are dealing with that wasn't there 2 years ago?
One, and I think this one is for everybody. One is technology is moving too fast. Thanks to AI, we are having so many things shifting. That's number one from a technology perspective. And what that also means is that you have to keep your teams up to speed. You have to spend more on training them. Very much a person who is pro building capability, building people and growing people. If I do that well, then I feel I have done my job well. So that's number one, that shift. The next thing that's also very, very much on top of my list is how markets are playing out. I think the shift in the markets is being dictated by a lot of dynamics around geopolitics. I think you know about the tariffs, you know what's happening with all those things have got to play sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. And that's the thing that sometimes disrupts business in the sense that you have an annual plan, and that annual plan is kind of driving what you are doing on your daily activity list. But then when you have these shifts that are happening every now and again, you have to re-strategize, you have to reorganize yourself and make sure that you are playing well in the market. Now, to make things worse in that space, Dan, I cover different countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Seychelles, and Somalia. Those different countries have got different dynamics. So playing into those different spaces requires a lot of sensitivity around the country dynamics as well as the macro or the global dynamics.
How do you juggle Somalia and Seychelles? I mean, those seem to be completely different kind of country dynamics. Uganda, Tanzania, kind of culturally aligned, fairly easy to get on. That is a wide spread of things. What's your secret to success there?
First of all, allowing the various country teams to connect with your team, and that we keep ourselves sensitive to the culture and how things are perceived in those spaces, and just making sure that we align with that. One of the things that is top in terms of being successful in those very diverse countries is choosing the right people, having the right person supporting the right territory. One thing you will come to appreciate is the fact that there are certain people who are really great in markets like Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. But if you give them a market like Seychelles or Somalia, they would struggle in one or the other. So matching the nuances around personality and making sure that the support systems are aligned with their value systems is very important in delivering that value chain to the customer. And that for us is top. And of course, the next thing that follows through is how we frequently connect with them on a monthly basis. How are they doing? Getting to know them, visiting them, making sure that you spend time with them, having lunch or dinner with them. Those are small things that play a major role in getting to kind of merge these different cultures in the region. And that is how business is done. I always believe that business is not done through the invoice and through the transfer of cash. It's done in the minds and hearts before that happens.
It's so interesting you mentioned culture about 3 times there, and culture seems to play a really big part in your leadership. When you are thinking of your culture, if you had to sum up the culture you want to create, can you give me a kind of an elevator pitch on it?
My leadership philosophy has always been to get the best out of people, getting people's working genius, getting their best to the table. And one of the things I've always believed is if we want to get a team that is performing optimally or performing a high performance team, one, we need to make sure that we have them in the right mindset. And number two, make sure that they are having the right behaviors. If we have these two sorted out, right mindset and right behavior, then getting the team to deliver then just follows through very easy. From a high level, that for me is the philosophy that I believe in. And people should not fear you. They should trust you. The moment they fear you, then there's something wrong.
Wow, I like that. We lead with love. We don't lead with anger. If you look 10 years into the future, what do you think the biggest challenge you as yourself as a Kenyan leader and an area leader, what do you think the challenges we face getting to the next 10 years?
The future is quite interesting. I think there's several things that are pretty much unavoidable into the future. I think one is from a technological shift perspective, I see the future being quite interesting. One, from the point of view that we're going to move away from the traditional space where we fight so much in the market for space based on products that we have. It's going to move more towards how well we serve our customers. And it's going to be driven by how we are able to harness technology, and AI will play a central role there. How are we able to use AI to understand the customer needs better? The other thing I see moving into the future is the leadership styles. I think if you look back in how leadership styles have been, you'll notice that the kind of leadership style that was there in your 80s, 90s, and the leadership style that you have now is shifting. And it's going to shift more into the future. I think the future leadership is going to be a lot more nuanced around sensory kind of perspectives. You have to feel people rather than just move them as pawns on a chessboard. It's going to be more about, can you be able to harness these skills from the team to deliver optimal results, which will be skills that are quite coveted into the future.
It's almost leading into asking you, what do you think people believe the role of an MD should be that you don't agree with?
I think before I became one, I had this perception that the role of an MD is to be this guy who sits up there and just makes sure that watches when people come into the office, makes sure that everybody has met their deadline and all that. And I got rudely shocked that that is not it. Right now, I think what people need to realize is that for you to be an MD, or the role of an MD, is casting vision and just having your eyes seeing more before others, as one of my favorite podcasts people say, and that is John Maxwell. It's seeing more before, being able to kind of get the organization ready to configure themselves for what is coming in the future. That would be the work of the MD. If you're an MD who is solving for now, you're too late.
Wow. And where do you go to educate yourself, to self-educate, to stay ahead of the game? What you mentioned John Maxwell's podcast. You listen to podcasts. Any book or podcast you would recommend for us to listen to just to get an unfair advantage?
One of the things that I've developed as a culture is every day having myself either read, listen to a podcast, or write something. So I'm always on a constant learning trajectory. But one of the things that really drive my passion is listening to a podcast by John Maxwell, of course. I really love how he brings out leadership points around how to lead. I believe in his philosophy of before you lead, then you need to love the people. You need to listen to them. You need to learn from them. Then you can lead them. If you can't do all those three, then pretty much you kind of miss the point. There is Pat Lencioni, I think you know that for now, getting the best out of people and getting that. I listened to Stephen Bartlett as well on Diary of a CEO. That's also one of my favorites. Blue Ocean, I think you know I've just forgotten the name of the author, but it's the Blue Ocean, Red Ocean. And the fact that we have this mindset that shifts out of us against you, where we start making competition irrelevant and becoming able to move into a space that everybody may not have thought about. Those are some of the things that keep me busy when I either driving or just sitting on holiday or something.
Amazing. Do you have a mentor or an industry role model?
One role model, I think he is for many people, is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, for me, is one of those people who was able to see more before. If you look back at his journey, think back when he was having this discussion with Microsoft and everybody was thinking, what are you talking about? This doesn't make sense. And he was casting this vision of a future and saying how when Microsoft is successful, we are also successful. And talking about how leadership can actually make you go to spaces where people cannot understand it yet, but you lead them. And when they look in hindsight, they actually get to understand. And pretty much if you see how the stocks of Apple is doing globally, you actually can see that in his footprints. The fact that he was able to shift to, again, blue ocean space, a space where everybody was fighting. All Android phones were fighting in this red ocean space, and he moved to the blue ocean.
You operate in a space very close to my heart. We're talking about engines. We're talking about giving people access to stuff that they wouldn't have because of the engines you're providing and that. What do you think your industry should start or stop doing today? What's something that specifically around people who are providing power to Africa, what do you think we should start or stop doing?
I think people in the power industry, they should stop inventing too fast. And I'll explain what that means. What that means is when we over-engineer and we build things too far into the future, then we lose the here and now. Everybody is keen on moving to green energy and all that. It's great. It's a great space to be. But however, we need to be very realistic what pace we are moving to that space at. One thing I'm very happy about is Cummins is very much ahead in that space, thinking about the different technologies they have, the battery energy solution systems, the hydrogen through Accelera and all that. There is a lot of innovation into the future. But then we have to be very careful that we do not move faster than what our space or the industries, what they need now. Because remember, you have customers who need something now, and we need to be relevant. And that's the thing I like about Cummins. They are keeping relevant to that. Though they have this technology into the future, they are sticking to what is relevant now and tailoring the solution for the customer for now.
I think there's so much wisdom in there, Erick. We've got to be relevant to the people that are consuming what's going on whilst we are still looking into the future. I think that's really a good way of putting it. If you were sitting next to a leading expert in your field from anywhere in the world, what would you ask them?
I think I'd ask them two things. One, I would ask them, what is it that you're inventing or you're coming up with that you'd like the world to know about? Obviously, they'll not tell me, but that would be a very important question to me because of the speed at which technology is shifting. I'd perhaps want to pry into that. What are these new things that are coming? The other thing I'd ask them is if at all they were to innovate one thing that would actually solve a great percentage of the world's problem, what would that be?
Let's find a way that we don't have to use combustible fuel like wood.
Yes.
And that in Africa, that would be amazing. You've been in leadership for a long time. Early on in your career, what mistake did you make and how did you learn from it?
I think I mentioned a little bit about it in our earlier conversation. One thing that I think I made a mistake on was not appreciating uniqueness, not appreciating diversity. That for me was a big wake-up call because I ended up finding myself losing people from my team, not because they were not great, but just because I was pretty much fixated in this perfect world where everybody is the same. And that for me was a really big U-turn that I had to make. And now one of the things that makes me enjoy the most is when I see people grow in the team. When I leave space for my leaders to innovate, I leave space for them to think and come up with solutions and tell me this would work better. Yes, I will ask them questions to challenge them because obviously I want to be sure that they've thought through it from beginning to end. But all in all, I give them that space to think and to innovate. One thing that kills innovation is trying to box people and trying to get people to do things like robots.
Sure. I like that. Thank you. That's really good, Erick. If you were speaking to a room full of new workers 5 years in, what advice would you give to them as they aspire to get to the deep carpets at the sea level?
I'd give them 3 advices. One is networking. You can be so great at what you do, but the fact that you don't connect with people and build a network, also you know how to use that network, then pretty much you find yourself not going so far and you wonder, why is it that I work so hard but nothing happened? And that's because your connections from a network perspective are pretty much limited. One of the podcasts, I can't remember which one, they actually say that you will only be as good as the people or the network that you have. If you want to be inspired to go for greater things, then you must choose that network very well to build you. The second thing I would talk to them about is the importance of growing yourself. I would tell them they need to make that a daily habit. Growing is always learning anywhere, whether you're having a conversation with somebody, whether you're reading a book, listening to a podcast, whatever it is, don't be stationary. Keep going. And the last but not least, the value of family, the value of making sure that you are connected with your family and you have your roots anchored, you have your faith anchored. Those are things that should never be negotiable in your life. When you have those three together, then you are all set.
Sure, you're unstoppable if you've got that. That's really good. That's aspirant, man. That's brilliant. My last kind of salesy question is, what's the biggest myth about sales that you would like to debunk, just end?
I think this was a myth I had personally. There are many people who believe that sales is very hard. They believe it is the most difficult job you could ever give them. I remember when I was interviewing for my initial entry-level job, even attachment, anytime there's a sales job, I would say, no, I'm not a salesperson. That used to be my response, that I'm not a salesperson. Unbeknown to me is that everything is a negotiation and there's a sale somewhere. There is a give and take. When you look at it critically, you actually are selling or buying something. Whether it is at home, you have to negotiate even with your kids. I don't know, with my son, we always negotiate. You want to watch TV? Okay, then you have to do your homework. Then say, oh, Dad, why do I have to do that? It's because then you can watch your TV. Then I'll say, okay, then I'll just do this page. Then you'll allow me. He's a very good negotiator at that. So sales has always been perceived to be this hard thing, but it is not. That is one thing that I must appreciate my coaching with Tony Cross. Tony Cross, for me, is one of those mentors that I feel has really impacted my life from that perspective. I now see sales in a very different perspective.
Awesome. Shout out to our founder, Tony Cross. Thank you for that, Eric. That's amazing. Got a few more questions for you. The first one is your 3 must-have pieces of technology that make you more effective as the MD.
I think you may know that I have a bit of a background in technology. So
Yeah, I do.
One of the things that I use a lot, and this was introduced to me by one of my mentors in Cummins, it's called the Todoist. The Todoist is one of those things that is always open on my dashboard, and it has a list of all the things I need to do. And anytime I've done them, I check them out and it disappears because I've already done it. I can always review it later, but it always keeps me on track. If I don't have that, I find myself not being able to account for what I've done in the whole week. And when I can't do that, I've done a lot of things, but maybe I did a lot of the wrong things.
So the Todoist, you like that? That's really good. If you were hosting this podcast, what question would you have asked Erick Sangoro that I didn't ask?
I would have asked Erick Sangoro, what are you working on lately?
Eric, what are you working on lately?
Thank you for asking that question. So one of the things I'm passionate about is growing people. Together with my CEO, that is Vijay, who has also been a great mentor. Actually, he's really played a major role in my growth in the organization and also my development. Is when he came to me once and he asked me, Eric, we need to build the leaders for tomorrow and for the future. What can we do? And that was how the Kajian Academy came to be. So the Kajian Academy has got 3 pillars. Pillar number 1 is mentorship, where we run mentorship sessions to build the next level of leaders. Kajian General is actually 90 years old next year, and that's why it is important. And then number 2 pillar is training that is geared towards getting the leaders have the right skills to be able to lead effectively in whatever sphere they are. The 3rd pillar is projects or innovation. So the innovation piece is about getting a problem in the organization and then solving it.
How many learners do we have on there?
it is in cohorts. So we have a cohort. So for example, the innovation bit is that we have a diverse cohort of people who come together, who run a project. And that project, it's a project about, for example, how do we make our customers thrive and smile? Number two could be, how do we make sure that we optimize our costs? So those are the two projects that have run, and they have been quite phenomenal, I can tell you that.
That's amazing. You've also put some people onto our sales management development program as well. So thank you for that, Eric. That's supporting us at Growth Matters. That's amazing. Cummins is a big supporter and big friend of ours. So I want to just give you a shout out for that as well. My last question for you, Eric, apart from getting us working in our lane of genius, which you've spoken about, what is the 1%, that one thing that makes an MD stand out for the rest that you would encourage us all to think about as we work in that position?
The 1% is with those people who are able to get the whole organization laser focused on the goals. And that speaks to how clearly you're able to articulate them. It speaks to how well you understand your team and how you're able to marry these two and make sure that people are laser focused. One of the things that I'm still learning, I'm still on that learning journey, is being able to do that effectively. And one of the tools I use is having widely important goals where you have your lead and your lag. When you're looking at your lag, it's pretty late. Your lead items need to pretty much laser focus and take you to where you need to be. I think if you as an MD are able to do that, then your job is done.
Amazing. Erick Sangoro from our neighboring Kenya, I appreciate your time, your wisdom, and your learning. People can get hold of you on LinkedIn, and where else can they find you? And Cummins site in Kenya as well.
I think on our website you can get me, but on LinkedIn mostly you can connect with me. I always connect back. I'll always respond to your messages. Always glad to.
Thank you so much for giving us some time, and from us at Growth Matters, have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. And to our listeners out there, make sales, make good choices, and carry on because growth matters. Thanks for listening to this episode of Because Growth Matters. If you found this conversation valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate this show 5 stars on the platform you're listening from and share it with someone who'd benefit from the conversations. Make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. See you then.